So today's date is March 23rd, 2021. It's 6:06 p.m. And I will go through and identify all council members, starting with myself, Jennifer Cervenka, Chair, Ray Koya, Vice Chair,
Ray Coy is present.
thank you, Jerry Sahajian,
Jerry Sahajian, present.
Mike Hudner,
Hudner, present.
Don Gomez,
Gomez, present.
Joy Montanaro,
Joy Montanaro, present.
Ron Gagnon,
Ron Gagnon, present.
and Trish Reynolds.
Tricia Reynolds, present.
Thank you. For staff, we have Jeff Willis, our Executive Director,
Present, Madam Chair.
James Boyd, our Deputy Director.
Present, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Tony DeSisto, our Chief Legal Counsel.
Present, Madam Chair.
Lisa Turner, our Recording Secretary.
Present, Madam Chair.
Ryan Moore, our Moderator.
Present, Madam Chair.
Thanks. Laura Dwyer, our Public Outreach Coordinator.
Present, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And Sydney Tagney, our Court Reporter.
Present.
Thank you. Okay, starting with the approval of our March 9th, 2021 minutes. Are there any comments or proposed revisions to the minutes? Seeing no one's hand up, I'll call for a motion to approve.
Madam Chair, motion to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Hudner. Is there a second?
Don Gomez, second.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez. I'll do a roll call for all council members. Vice Chair Ray Koya,
Ray Coy votes aye.
Jerry Sahajian,
Sahajian, aye.
Aye.
Mike Hudner,
Hudner, aye.
Don Gomez,
Gomez, aye.
Joy Montanaro,
Joy Montanaro, aye.
Ron Gagnon,
Ron Gagnon, aye.
Trish Reynolds,
Reynolds, aye.
and myself, Jennifer Cervenka, aye. The motion to approve the March 9, 2021 meeting minutes carries. Next, we have subcommittee reports. Mr. Boyd, do you have those for us?
Madam Chair, I just want to report that the Rights of Way Subcommittee met earlier today to discuss several rights of way in the town of Portsmouth as well as the city of Providence, and that the recommendation from the subcommittee was to have legal counsel continue due diligence to do the proper legal investigation for the documentation associated with those rights of way, as well as for staff to start scheduling the public meetings for those municipalities for a public hearing in which to have discovery and discuss adoption of potential rights of way in Portsmouth as well as Providence.
Thank you, Mr. Boyd. Anyone have questions about that? All right, thank you. We'll move on to Mr. Willis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just two items to report. I report on this as often as I can. This is the cable reburial effort out on Block Island from the wind farm. As you know, this was an order of the council to address the issue because the cables had daylighted both with the Ørsted cable and the National Grid cable. I get reports often. I got one as early as this afternoon from Ørsted that they had shut down the wind farm operation so that they can start the cable pulling, as well as they're expecting to begin joining and splicing those cables by the end of this week. So that project is on schedule, continues to be on schedule for a late April, early May completion date. The other item that I'd just like to bring up to speed on is one that we've been talking about for a while, and that is addressing aquaculture as an element of our Bay SAMP effort. As you know, the Bay SAMP has had its beginnings have been started with specific tasks, one being offshore renewable energy cables coming into state waters and up Narragansett Bay that we've had to spend significant time on when we did. And now we are going to be spending time on the aquaculture element of that, of the plan. So the plan as a whole is not being looked at this specific instant, but we are looking at the specific task right now of aquaculture having completed the cable corridor issue. So we have developed a scoping outline at the staff level, and we are working with our partners at the University of Rhode Island GSO and Sea Grant to finish that scoping element. We will take that scoping element out to the public in the next couple of months so that we can begin the public input process in earnest. So I will continue to bring you up to speed on that project as we move along. That's it, Madam Chair.
And the scope that you take out to public, that's going to be subject to revision after you get the input from the public?
Absolutely.
Okay. And to come up with the initial scope, it's just the university at this point, and then you'll bring in other stakeholders as you move forward?
That is correct.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Willis on his report? Okay. If none, then we will move on to our one item on for discussion tonight, which is utilization of outside counsel in the Vineyard Wind offshore renewable energy projects consistency certification review. Mr. DeSisto, are you going to start this off for us?
I'd like to, if I may.
Yes, please.
Since I was appointed in 2016, to my knowledge, there has been only one instance where outside counsel was utilized by CRMC, and that was for the Vineyard Wind matter. And the attorney that was hired was Dan Prentice. And one of the questions that came from our member, Mr. Sahajian, was whether or not there was any retainer agreement or any fee agreement with Mr. Prentice on that. And I haven't been able to find that, and I suspect that there was no fee agreement that was executed between CRMC and Mr. Prentice. And I have spoken to staff on this, and none was found, and I'm confident that there was none for that particular engagement. So that's the first question. I do know that I was aware that he was hired, and I was aware of the work that he did on it. It is not something that I worked with him on. And when the Vineyard Wind matter progressed, and it appeared that there was a possibility for a settlement with the FAB on the mitigation issue, at that point, I was asked by the executive director to participate in those negotiations, and Mr. Prentice was not. I do know he was paid a short time ago. The fee was around $8,000. I think Jeff has the exact figures on that. And that's about it. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
So, Mr. DeSisto, Jerry Sahajian, I have a couple of questions. They are not directed at Executive Director Willis because he was not the executive director at the time in question. But I would like to ask the chair a couple of questions regarding the hiring of Mr. Prentice. So, Madam Chair,
Yes.
when were you informed that Mr. Prentice was retained by CRMC?
Around the time that we were working on the consistency certification.
So probably 2 or 3 years ago?
A couple of years ago.
Okay.
Before us.
And
Can I, excuse me, can I jump in for a second on this? Just for clarification purposes on it, I believe it was in 2018. One of the things that was told to me was that because Vineyard Wind had retained a large DC law firm, that the feeling was that additional legal help was needed here, and that was in 2018. That was before, that was right at the start of the Vineyard Wind application. So in the context of it, I believe that was in 2018.
Okay, that's close enough. Madam Chair, of all the environmental lawyers in the state, why did you choose Attorney Prentice, and did you interview anybody else?
I did not choose Attorney Prentice. I believe that Grover Fugate, the former executive director, maybe in consultation with other staff, hired or chose Mr. Prentice.
But you were aware of it in 2018, and did you know that action was required by the council or the Department of Administration, which neither was secured, to hire an outside counsel for over $5,000? Were you aware that that was required?
I was not aware of rules for engagement of outside counsel.
Okay. Doing a little research on the State of Rhode Island Supreme Court disciplinary panel. Maybe you should not have been aware, but Attorney Prentice, I think it's Rule 1.5 indicates that it's up to the attorney to know the rules and regulations, and someone that's been, around as long as Attorney Prentice, he surely should have recognized that it was an improper hiring. So for everyone's edification, Mr. Prentice was paid over $8,000, and I have some concerns because in a brief that he recently submitted, he called the members of CRMC amateurs. He said we acted with brazen illegal activities. We had a secret, contrived fix contested. He basically said a lot of bad things about us, to put it in simple terms. And that will, I guess, be the bridge to what I'm about to say concerning some of the violations of attorney-client privilege. And but before I say that, it really bothers me that the chair knew that he was retained and no one on the council knew. Okay, then Mr. Prentice, airs out his frustrations in the Province Journal and the Echo Rhode Island News and makes erroneous statements about about council members and the council as a whole, disparaging statements about us. And geez, no one had the decency to tell us that he was representing us. So a couple of the things that I found that he did wrong. Number one was there was no written fee agreement. Okay. And every attorney should know that a written fee agreement is required, especially in light of the fact that I have a copy of Mr. Prentice's invoice. He charges interest for late payments. So how did he derive a number to charge us interest on a late payment? Was it a handshake? Was he getting $50 an hour? Was he charging $500 an hour? One of the things that former executive director of the disciplinary panel, David Curtin, told me, one of the reasons why it was important to have a written fee agreement so disputes like this don't happen. So no written fee agreement. He charges interest on a late bill when we don't have any proof of what the bill was. So he violated Rule 1.5. Think about this. In his brief, he indicated, and you can print this on Rhode Island or Echo Rhode Island. You can print this down. In his brief, he said 17 years going back from January 2021, he was involved with a contested matter with CRMC in the court. Well, 2018 falls in that timeline. So that's another violation. He violated attorney-client privilege. The comments that he made about us, I mean, I don't know how everyone else feels, but that's terrible. One of the ironic notions is, he said we were amateurs. It's on the first page. Well, what do you say for an attorney that doesn't provide a written fee agreement? You know, talk about the pot calling the kettle black. I said enough. I mean, I have notes here, but I've been speaking for a while. If anybody else wants to jump in, I'd love to hear your opinion.
Madam Chair, Ray Coyer to be recognized.
Mr. Koya?
My question is to Attorney DeSisto. Echoing Jerry's comments, I actually have a brief that I printed out myself, and I highlighted comments that I take offense to. I mean, it's not a known secret. I was representing CRMC along with some other individuals on the Champlin matter. And
Mr. Koya, can I just interrupt for a second? I think we keep coming back to a brief that was submitted, as I understand it, in Champlin's matter. I am recused from that. I can't participate in that. If we're going to talk about it, I do have to leave the meeting. So you can do what you want. You can speak about it, but I have to leave and then come back.
well, I'll ask Tony on that, because I'm just making some references to what's in the brief. And then my question to you, and then Jen can decide if she needs to step out right now, is I would like CRMC as his client to file a complaint with the disciplinary board that he has put in writing and has spoken that his prior client engaged in blatantly illegal procedure. It's astonishing for our brazen illegality. The MOU is amateur execution. It's repellent, deeply corrupt effort to effect an inside, secretly contrived fix of a contested litigation, is a naked affront to the rule of law and to the dignity of the court. So I've got a problem with our attorney that we paid calling me and my fellow council members and CRMC as a whole criminals. I mean, obviously, someone that engages in illegal activity is a criminal. And that's the connotation he's trying to get. Nothing's hidden. His assertions all over the place that it was backroom deals, and it certainly wasn't backroom deals. Things were noticed. They knew about it. So Ray Coyer, as vice chair, as an attorney, takes a personal affront to it, and Ray Coyer, as a member of CRMC, takes affront to that. And I would like the council, and you can tell me how it can be done, to file a complaint with the disciplinary council against him for disparaging a client.
Okay, so I think based on that, I am going to recuse myself from participating in this. I'll wait here to sign back onto the meeting once you finish with this discussion, which is clearly connected to Champlin's and the briefing in that matter.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll wait to hear and I'll sign back in.
Sounds good.
I'd like to take that under advisement. And to the extent that I'd give you legal advice on that to the council, I'd like to do that in an executive session.
Okay.
So at this time, I think it's appropriate to take it under advisement, and it's not something that was on the agenda for that type of advice. So I would like to hold it at this time and take it under advisement.
How about, and you may take this under advisement too, but I'll pose the question, whether or not there were any breaches to the Rhode Island ethics statute when he was getting paid by his clients that he had for Champlin for 17 years, and then took CRMC on as a client and charged us money, who was also a party to the case that he represented someone for 17 years. I mean, whether or not, when all is said and done, that's an ethical violation, but man, that like stinks.
The, of course, the provisions of the Code of Ethics are different than the Code of Professional Responsibility. But that's another one I'd like to take under advisement.
I don't know, to Jerry's point, if anyone else wants to say anything, but I mean.
Well, Mr. DeSisto, I have one more question. One of the things that disturbs me is this attorney was representing us, right? We didn't know about it. He was making comments in the newspaper about us. He was referencing us in his brief. And I mean, wasn't there an obligation to notify the CRMC council that Mr. Prentice was representing us?
Well, I can confirm.
Or I'm sorry, Mr. DeSisto, is Chair Cervenka excused from that because she recuses herself from Champlain's? She didn't have to let us know that Prentice was representing us?
Well, I can confirm to you that the council did not vote to retain Mr. Prentice. And I can confirm to you that, and I'm going on memory, but I think it's confirmed by taking a look at the minutes that there was never a discussion at the council level to retain additional counsel for the Vineyard Wind project. I can confirm that to you. But my understanding of this was, and by the way, I was told that this was going to happen, but I wasn't consulted on who would be coming in on it. But this was something that was done by the executive director. This was the first large wind project off the coast of Rhode Island. And, he felt that additional legal support was needed and that, he went ahead and engaged Mr. Prentice. So I can confirm all of those things that you're saying, but to me, this was done at the staff level. And in fact, to complete the work on that project, that was done by me. And that was the negotiation on the mitigation for the coastal effects through the Fishermen's Advisory Board.
One more question, Mr. DeSisto. Does the chair's recusal from Champlain's relieve her of the obligation to inform us that Prentice was representing us?
Well, I would have expected that would have come from the executive director.
Okay.
But that didn't happen. And I understand that the legal advice and the legal services that were given were strictly at the staff level.
Okay.
But I don't know that because I wasn't involved in those activities and I was not asked to supervise or to be involved in any way.
Okay, when you do your research, please look at Rule 1.5, 1.6, and 1.7. It's crystal clear. A vote has to be taken for anything over $5,000. It's crystal clear that there has to be a fee agreement. It's crystal clear you can't make comments about your former clients or current clients. It's crystal clear that you can't violate the oath that you owe your former clients. And a couple of other things in this brief on page, he made comments about us on page 1, page 10, page 12, page 13, page 14. And ironically, on page 20, he said we did a secret deal. And to me, the only secret deal was when he was hired to represent CRMC. So I'm a little confused. The only thing certain is, I guess, Attorney Prentice, one of his clients will win because he's representing both sides. So I've said all I have to say. Thank you. And I hope to hear from other council members.
Mr. DeSisto. Don Gomez,
Yes?
Yes. Yeah, the thing that bothers me, and I'd like to get something done about it. He kept presenting what was considered news when in fact it was just a bunch of opinion pieces. Blatantly lied. And it appeared on the front page of the Journal, and 3 times it appeared on the inside of the Providence Journal. To the point that I had a lot of people laughing at me and questioning what the hell did I do, right? I personally want a retraction from the SOB, and I want it on the front page of the damn Journal where he put this crap. Is that something we can do?
Well, to be
Or we just
fair,
take him to court?
his client that he represents in this, and of course he represents the town too, I understand, but they have hired a public relations firm that I think generates a lot of this content. That was reported, by the way, in the Go Local Prov news site. That's not something that I had been aware of.
Well, and then we need to include them in to whatever we do. And if he's the one that hired him, he's the guy that we have to go after.
Yeah, I'm not aware of that at all. I know what I read from that particular news source.
Well, I didn't like it personally, especially when there was no fact checking. He didn't know what the heck he was talking about. And it was all based on this stuff that he stirred up. So that you wanted my opinion, you got it.
Tony, it's Ray. I have a question in that I was aware, I did read that somewhere that a group has retained like a public relations firm. And I think Jerry had mentioned this, or someone had mentioned this at an earlier meeting. How come nothing's emanating out of CRMC coming to our defense? Or should we get someone to do that? I mean, I know Laura does what she does and does a fine job, but do we need someone like banging back right now saying what we did was correct, what you did was correct, and they're wrong on references to you and to me and Jeff and the full council?
Well, I think to date, what the agency has decided to do was to litigate the matter in court where it should be, rather than engage in this type of a public relations battle.
Okay.
Did this get all the way up to Paul Sattel? Is that correct? Are we going to
Before the Supreme Court.
Supreme Court?
Correct, yes.
Yeah. Did we bypass an appeals court on the way to get the Supreme Court?
No.
No? Okay.
Joe, you're on mute.
All right, I guess with Jennifer stepping down, I will take over as chair. So Joy,
That would make sense. I just want to. I can't get a word in edgewise. I just want to say that I agree wholeheartedly with Jerry in what he had to say. And I absolutely agree with Don Gomez. We pick up the newspaper every other weekend and we're on the front page of something that is so untrue that I believe that we should have some type of public statement, comment, explaining, why we did what we did, how we did what we did, in condemning what this attorney is saying about us, because I have no real involvement in this other than the mediation. The 17 years of everything that has gone on, I have no part of any of that. But to be called or said that we made a backroom deal, or that a backroom deal had been made, in astonishingly brazen illegalities and secret contrived fix. I mean, it is all insulting language to be used especially if it's just for a public relations campaign, because that's what it sounds like to me. So I'm with Jerry on this. I think that this needs to be fought in the open and, I mean, not fought, but, you know, publicly stated what's been happening. And that's all I really have to say.
Ray, one other comment. In his brief, I think on 7 different occasions, he mentions private deals. And on page 26, it says without notice to opposing parties. I mean, it's a blatant lie. I mean, maybe that's something for the courts to decide, but it's so ironic. The only private deal, the only thing no one on this Zoom call knew was Dan Prentice was secretly hired by CRMC.
Mr. Vice Chair,
Yes, Mr. Hudner.
Mike Hudner. I'm completely sympathetic to the remarks that are being made. I don't have a tactical analysis of the whole situation that would guide my thinking about what's the correct immediate course of action for the council. I think it's very unjust. I've been in situations through my career where things happen that are unjust. And sometimes you have to wait for the right moment. Sometimes the right moment is right now to act, to defend yourself. I don't know which we're in. I realize we can't let this stand, but I don't know, given the legal proceeding, if there's a better time and place to object to what's been going on. In other words, to defend our reputation with the facts, or if we should be putting out some type of a statement of the facts that is our position as to what actually happened and pointing out the erroneous or deceitfulness of, I guess it's Mr. Prentice. I don't know, but I don't, my saying I don't know doesn't mean I don't think we ought to be doing something at the right time and place. I feel strongly about that. And I'd like it to be of maximum benefit to our work and not only to ourselves as individuals, although obviously I feel strongly about that. I mean, I've seen what happened, for instance, with the Quonset Point dredging decision, or not dredging, but blowing up those rocks there. It's been completely misrepresented what we discussed and what the rationale was for the approval of that application in several places. It's, you know, it's very cheap what's being done to us. And I'm pretty thick-skinned at this point in my life because of things I've been through, but we shouldn't have to take that as part of the price of, let's call it unpaid public service. It's not good for the state. It's not good for the people because it's a disincentive for people to feel they have to take umbrage to do the right thing. Thank you.
I just want to say this, you know, I'm sympathetic and I understand because, you know, comments have been made about me too, and nobody likes to see that. But the plain fact of the matter is the matter's pending before the Supreme Court. And there's an audience of 4 up there for this case. And that audience that will hear and decide this case is not, they're not swayed by media reports. And to me, and this is, you know, how I feel as a lawyer, engaging in a public relations campaign is not something that is beneficial or necessary to prove your case. I understand where you're coming from because you're a public agency. You've endured this for the past a month or so. But, you know, if you ask my opinion on this, we should do our arguing before the Supreme Court. Now, you know, there's professionals on the staff that can discuss this and come up with the appropriate responses. But at least the way that I look at this is, you know, it's one thing to make these types of statements to the media, but it's another thing to try and make those statements in those types of arguments in court. They're 2 very different things. So that's my 2 cents on it.
Attorney
I'm sorry.
DeSisto. Oh, okay, go ahead, Mr. Hudler.
Just say this.
Tony, I didn't quite follow what you said about arguments you can make in court that you can't make in the press. I just lost the thread there. You mean we can put our case forward to the court in a way that's more effective than putting it forward in the press? Is that what you meant, or did I misunderstand?
I'll give you an example. Statements were made about the efficacy of the last election. Statements were made in the press. Those same arguments were not successful in court. It's a different type of an advocacy. And that's an example that I think is germane here. So as I say, I'll defer to what staff says on this. I don't want to get too far afield from what we have under the Open Meetings Act. What you've said so far is encompassed in that, but I don't want to go too far beyond what was on the agenda.
Attorney DeSisto, I agree with what you're saying. I appreciate and respect that you're pragmatic and, you don't act unhinged and speak off the cuff like maybe the potential respondent does. So I think you're right. But if you want some time to think about it, I think we should stay away from the PR, let the courts decide it. But it's crystal clear there are 4 or 5 violations. And if you want some time to think about it, I'll go along with that. But just so you know, it's crystal clear. And as on my own, in a couple of weeks, I would file a complaint with the disciplinary. I prefer to, have the colleagues on the council feel the same way if they agree with the evidence. So if you need some time, if that's what you're directing us to do, I'm okay with the time. But the bottom line is taking the pragmatic approach. You will be filing a brief detailing the logic, rationale of what really happened before, and the Supreme Court can weigh out the evidence, correct?
Yes.
Not, what Mr. Prentice said in the Providence Journal that was erroneous.
Correct.
And mean-spirited, and potentially unhinged. Okay. So as long as the court's making their determination on logic and our rationale, I don't see the need for, a PR campaign. That's my opinion.
Mr. DeSisto, just one more comment. I've been in these kind of positions over the decades just because I decided that I would, if I wanted to make change in my neighborhood and in my communities, I need to be in the middle of it. So I accept the fact that we're public figures. We have to put up with some of this. But this is just so far beyond the pale and blatant lies and no fact checking that, I agree with Jerry and Mike. We need to, pick our battle and take a look at it. But, and in the past, these things usually don't bother me. It came out over and over and over in multiple places. And it was based on lies. So, again, I'm just stating my own feelings. I guess I'm venting a little bit, but I agree, Harry, that probably this is not the correct time to do a PR, but we ought to start considering something for downstream. Thank you.
Okay.
Tony, Mike Hudner, I'd just like to say, I think you're giving us good advice.
Thank you.
So Tony, where do we go from here? Should we just poll the members, or do you want to report back to us and confirm? Because I'm not an attorney.
I'd rather,
I'm sure I could have made a mistake.
I'd rather do a report back.
They're crystal clear.
Yeah, on the issues that were raised on it, but please give me that opportunity and we can go from there.
How long do you need?
A couple of weeks. That's it.
So next week's the 5th Tuesday. There's no meeting. So the 2nd Tuesday in April would be 3 weeks. Is that adequate?
Plenty of time.
Thank you.
Well, can we have the chair come back in?
I will alert her. She's on her way.
Jeff, can you arrange for tickets for all of us to that nice spot that's in the picture behind you?
You got it, no problem.
Are you sure you don't want to go to the picture behind me?
I'd be afraid. I don't know if I could get back. That's a place in Bristol, isn't it?
According to Jim, it's behind my right shoulder is Moscow.
Oh. Looks like it's flaring up. I think this has been a good discussion.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Jennifer. Were you watching Donald Duck?
That would be nice and light. All right, so
Jen,
where are we completed with one? Are we still talking about one? There's no other business to be discussed other than one.
Yeah, I actually, I have my marching orders, and I think that the discussion is at an end, and it's time to adjourn.
Okay, well, then I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
I
So
move we
moved, Madam
adjourn.
Chair.
I second the motion.
Thank you. Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
good night, everyone.
Jen, thanks for
Okay.
Good night.
Good night,
Good night.
everybody.